Good morning, everyone. This is People of Substance by LemonSkies. I'm Olga Woltman, and I'm thrilled to welcome Bethany Riley, a friend, a former colleague, and Bethany is Vice President of Client Services at Further Digital, a company that specializes in digital paid marketing.
That's correct. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So you really developed a niche for yourself in paid marketing, but you didn't start out as an advertising person. How did you end up where you are?
Yeah, so it's funny. I was actually a business major in college, and then switched to politics, and then quickly found out that working on the Hill was not for me. And so I got a job at a digital advertising firm for political races everywhere from national down to down ballot initiatives, and worked there for a time doing paid media, and then ventured into the nonprofit space and have been there for about 7 years. So yeah, kind of flip-flopped a little bit, but it's been exciting. I love being in paid media. It's always changing. So
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. I mean, obviously, everything changes all the time, but it seems like in paid media space, I mean, you have new platforms that did not exist even a few years ago.
yeah.
The rules of the game change very constantly. So, what are some current trends you're seeing?
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people, being in politics before, a lot of people asked me, well, what happened in 2016? What happened in 2020? And a lot of it was not really relevant to
Mhm.
2024 because the space changes so much and because targeting changes and whatnot. So, I mean, Facebook in particular has changed so much even in the last 4 years. I would say, along with channels, certainly there are new channels that we love to test ongoing. I think the biggest trend that I've seen is, a lot of our clients feel like they need attribution tools now more than ever. There's so many channels out there and so many different ways of measuring the impact of those channels. I think that's the biggest trend that I've seen in the last couple of years is a lean into measuring what those channels are doing. How does that affect the bottom line?
Mhm.
Where should they invest? And so that's something that we provide a lot of our clients insights to is that upper funnel importance in paid, and trying to give them the data that they need to make those cases for investment.
So, the days of, oh, but it raises awareness, those days are over.
Yeah, because again, like it has to impact the bottom line. Like, especially so for example, like CTV, a lot of people they need to know that it's having an impact. And a way to do that is through these attribution tools of showing how much of an impact, how much money should they be
Mhm.
investing, what happens if they turn it off. And those are a lot of questions, and rightfully so, that not only our day-to-day clients have, but leadership teams have.
So let me ask you this. For many nonprofits, I mean, paid marketing, obviously, it is an investment, and there's a lot of reluctance, or if your budget is pretty small and pretty finite, where does it make sense to start to get sort of the most bang for your buck?
Sure. That's a great question. I mean, search is going to be the first place that I would look. There's
Mhm.
Google Grant. There's even a Bing Grant now where they provide money for nonprofits to direct traffic, to have campaigns. So I would start there. That's low hanging fruit. But actually, the place where I see the most opportunity that clients don't necessarily do as much with is the website.
Mhm.
Whether you're, in paid media or not, you're driving traffic to your website, and a lot of there's a lot of room to grow in that field. I think website testing is something that we should be doing a lot more of. Same thing with what we do
Mhm.
in paid media. You should be testing your website and CRO and donation forms as much as you're testing in Facebook, as much as you're testing in email. It should be a continuous test. And I think if you have limited resources, optimizing your website to increase those conversions is one of the areas that I see most.
Well, that's a very fair point, right? Because if we assume that the website is static, but we're just changing our strategies for paid media, maybe you got everything right with paid
Yeah,
media targeting, but your landing page is just not very sticky.
Exactly. And again, I know there's not a want to test during Q4 maybe, but again, like I think donation forms should be continuously tested from Q1 to Q3 because it is such an important way. You're driving traffic. You want to make sure it's as easy as
Mhm.
possible to donate, and that is again that's low hanging fruit for people for sure.
And I think one of the mistakes I see oftentimes, and it's not limited to paid marketing, just because something is considered to be a best practice that worked for one entity, it doesn't mean that you will see those same results.
100%. And I'm on the mantra that you should be always trying to beat the controls.
Mhm.
Again, and this is true on the website side, but I feel like there's a tendency to maybe just go with what's worked
Mhm.
previously. And then that's when you get in that you're stagnant. You
Yeah,
should be always trying to beat what your control messaging is. And it should be, you've got one control and five tests, not the other way around. So I
right.
think that's super important.
Right, that makes sense. Well, it would be hard to have a conversation today without mentioning artificial intelligence. It's everywhere in everything, every interaction, every experience. How is it impacting paid marketing?
Yeah, AI has been a topic of a ton of conferences and conversations that I've had over the last 2 years for sure. It's funny because we've used predictive AI for
Mhm.
years now when it comes to finding new donors, finding new people to target. So in a lot of ways, that's the same. It's gotten better in certain
Mhm.
channels, and I guess one of the downsides that I see is just more of it being a black box.
Mhm.
The targeting might have gotten better, but our insights into what's driving donations or who those people are might not necessarily be as clear as what it was previously. So if you take again something like a Google product Performance Max where they
Mhm.
aggregate all of their products together and just say like we'll push it to the right people, it becomes a black box and you don't really understand sometimes the insights that you're getting, which makes it tough for strategizing. So
So essentially, they're optimizing your results, so you should be glad, but at the
yep.
same time, they're taking away your ability to understand what's driving those results.
Correct. Yep. And so one area that I'm particularly interested in is just more insights and data analysis. Like
Mhm.
where can AI provide you those answers, whether that's donor segmentation or other prospecting models. I think that's going to be a really interesting area that's going to continue to develop.
Yeah. So you and I in the past have worked on creative together. And, it's one of those things that you will not arrive at your control until you start testing. Like you can't just sit and wait for perfect creative, but you have to get started. But one piece that I always find really interesting about creative for advertising, whether it's a banner ad or a Google ad or a Facebook promotion, you're working with a very finite amount of space. And issues can be very complex. And, in some ways, that amount of limited page space just doesn't do it justice. So, how do you kind of strike that balance to not oversimplify and almost like diminish importance of issues, but still connecting to your audiences?
Yeah, great question. I think the biggest factor that has come out is the use of video. I mean, that is an engaging, creative, that can capture people and also tell your story. We've been trying to, push a lot of our clients to invest more in creative in that storytelling, and I think it's proven itself time after time again. I would say testing as
Mhm.
well. There's not necessarily an idea now that people prefer shorter text versus longer text. A lot of people will find that uh, compelling if it's authentic,
Mhm.
and donate there. I would also say um, understanding more of like the impact is super important for fundraisers like myself, and I think a really great way that I've always been an advocate for during meetings with our clients is trying to invite people from programs
Mhm.
from organizations to attend those calls because I think it helps us. I think again you can kind of get in a stagnant area of just testing the control over and over again. And the next thing you know, it's been a control for 2 years. And you really need that constant feed of what are the important things that you guys are doing? What are you doing on the ground? What does programs focus on? And having that constant feedback loop to us so that we can say, okay, this is a compelling statistic, or you guys were able to provide X number of meals or X number of water stations. And that really helps us articulate that in an ad. Because like you said, there is a finite space, but I think those impact stories really help. And the people that are best poised to tell us that are people from programs and that are on the ground and that are seeing it every day.
What a shocking concept, right? To invite your colleagues that do mission work to actually help inform some of the strategies.
Yeah, it's definitely harder than you'd think, but it benefits all. So I'm a huge advocate for it.
The other trend that I'm seeing, and I think it's mostly self-imposed by us, is greater recognition of ethics also in advertising and storytelling and just every aspect. Because I think if we dial back, a decade and a half, like you were seeing a lot of very pitiful and very kind of heart-wrenching imagery. And I think there's just a greater recognition that just because it works doesn't mean you should be doing it. Are you seeing more of that as well?
Yeah, definitely. Again, even when I started, 6 or 7 years ago, a lot of it was like that. And there's been a huge change. And again, I think the biggest point that I can make on just that change is that testing of it. We found that other creative works. And you need to be able to point to the data to say, like, here's what works, and this is why, and this is what we should continue with. So I think finding those tests versus the control, it should be 1 control and 5 tests. And that's the only way that you're going to find new messaging that resonates with people.
And test not just itty bitty incremental change, right? Like not just a word change that's just not going to give you anything meaningful.
Yeah. Messaging concepts, different videos. Yeah, go big with some of those. That's the only way that you're going to find new and innovative messaging that resonates.
Yeah, I'm thinking we can set up like a betting pool for nonprofit professionals to bet on winning creative. That would be fun.
I love it.
So to turn our attention to something a little bit more fun, we've talked a lot about paid marketing. Obviously, I worked with you. I've on issues and subject matter. But what are some things about Bethany that people may not know beyond the resume that we're not going to find on your LinkedIn profile or your CV?
Oh, great question.
I'm hoping for something really juicy here, but
really juicy. I'm sorry, I'm not juicy. I mean, probably more on the opposite side. I mean, I love to travel. I know you and I have had conversations about travel and history. So I guess more along the not so juicy side. I think my dream job when I retire in 35 years is something that I call kind of like a traveling tour guide, where I have this theory where, you could start for 3 months, you read up on, the Sydney Opera House, and you are a tour guide there for 6 months to a year. And then you're placed somewhere else in the world and you learn up, and then you're a tour guide, at the Tower of London or something like that. And you're just constantly rotating and constantly learning new things. I think would be amazing.
So basically you want to travel and get paid to do it.
Exactly. Okay. Yes. That's, yeah, I haven't found a way to do that right now currently. So, when I do, I'll let you know, but for now, that's the dream. I really like cooking. I like running. I am not like you, where I wake up at 5 a.m. and run for 13 miles, but
you do wake up at 5 a.m. You just don't get.
I do wake up at 5 a.m, but it involves more making pancakes for my 1-year-old and sometimes having her throw them off her seat, but that's okay.
Fair enough.
We've all been there.
Yeah. Well, Bethany, thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest. Always a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.